Hey, I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jake Skolfine, with another special edition of Where'd You Get Your Funk From? This is the fourth Jam Fans Forum episode in which expert panelists provide their top picks in various funk music categories. This time around, we're taking on the scintillating topic of the 5 greatest jazz funk albums of all time.
Yeah.
Joining me are 3 returning esteemed Jam fans. We welcome back funk crusader, educator, and host of the Uncut Funk radio show, Phil Colley.
What's up, everybody? Mofo rising tonight, man. If you're not here, Mofo rising tonight with the mothership lapel pin.
There you go.
We also welcome back music and culture journalist and liner notes master, A. Scott Galloway. Welcome back, Scott.
Be here. Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have lifelong music devotee, host of the FJS, that's Funky, Jazzy, and Smooth with KD radio show, who's also a legal expert. It's Karl A. Welcome back, Karl.
Thank you, Scott. It's wonderful to be here and looking forward to the show. Greetings, everyone.
Outstanding. And thank you to all you guys for keeping the funk alive.
No doubt.
So the criteria set forth for this discussion here is listed in the show description. So check that out. I'm not going to go through it all and bore you with that on this, but definitely give it a look. Before we dive in, let's briefly touch on how each of our panelists, came to pick their top jazz funk albums of all time. So what was some of the criteria? Let's start with Phil.
Man, when we came up a little earlier, when music was like really varied on the radio and mainstream, you heard some of everything. So, the R&B, the jazz, the funk, a lot of times it was intertwined. It used to always be a jazz station on the radio back when we were coming up. Man, I know when I moved to the Bay, it was KBLX in the Bay, and KSOL and KNOK when I was Dallas-Fort Worth area. But my criteria was what moved me musically, what was like really funky, driving bass lines, but a lot of instrument-driven music, a lot of different time signatures in the music, but it was still just like banging and funky and make you bob your head, just like the funk, quote unquote funk. So a lot of my criteria were what albums were I listening to that that moved me just as much as the funk, but came in a jazz vein. So that was kind of how I made my choices.
Makes sense. Scott, what about you?
I just decided that I wanted to focus on some albums that would not be, more the most expected. It's a category where, when it was first brought to my attention, I thought, okay, I could start counting off certain records that I expect to be in here. So my role today, for the most part, is going to be to share, things that are personal favorites that I think are truly exceptional, not just personal, but they are things that are a little bit more, off the map and not the records that people might expect to be in overall top 5. This is my top 5.
Amen.
That's a good point. It's all of our top 5s. This is not a comprehensive top 20. It's what we gravitate toward, and then collectively what it brings us to with the top 20. So sounds like some curveballs coming, Scott.
Right.
KD, what about you?
So very much like Phil, I went back, and frankly, a lot of my choices come from the early 70s to about 1980. And what was driving me then was primarily during my teen years, my folks were living in Shreveport, Louisiana. The radio station was KOKA. And Sunday afternoons was jazz funk time. The show was called Aqua Jazz. I don't know why they called it Aqua Jazz, but that's what it was called. And it was very cool. It was funky. The phrase that Phil and I coined some time ago was smooth but funky. That's what the show was about. So that's what I looked at in making my choices. I also distinguished between jazz funk and funky jazz. And it may be something we get into a little bit later, because I initially I had some selections in there that I thought, really, that's funky jazz. That's not jazz funk. So
yeah, it definitely blurs some lines for sure. And I'm sure Scott can relate to this. Some of the radio stations in LA when we were coming up, we were fortunate enough that they would, mix in some of the stuff that got into jazz and jazz funk and cross those genre boundaries and opened our ears to it. And what helped me too was that, I would hear some of the crossover hits that some of the jazz guys were having, and that would make me go back and listen to their albums. And then I would get to absorb their other stuff that was, either a mix or straight jazz.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, here we had KBCA, we had KJLH, we had KACE. Those were the 3 FM stations that you could, potentially hear some of the funk, jazz fusion, contemporary jazz, whatever you want to call it. And then a few you would even hear on AM radio, and I'll see if anybody brings those
up. All right. Well, the time has come. So I'm going to let our curveball man go first to get us going here. Scott, what do you have?
Ladies first.
Miss okay. Rushen. Baby doll. I love her so much. Baby fingers. I just saw her in concert at Disney Hall about a month ago, and she was amazing. That album is called Shout It Out. It was her third of 3 albums for Prestige Records. Her first album, Prelusion, was more of an instrumental acoustic jazz record with 1 synthesizer track. Next album, Before the Dawn, was her bringing her Fender Rhodes in, and a lot of instrumental stuff, very Herbie Hancock influenced. But when we talk about this record and we're talking about funk, Patrice was not playing. She was a young sister in Los Angeles. And on this record, she had Al McKay of Earth, Wind & Fire on the guitar, Charles Meeks from the Chuck Mangione Band on electric bass, James Gadson, the amazing LA session musician, on drums, Bill Summers on percussion, who was also kind of a label mate, because Bill Summers and Summers Heat were also part of the Prestige Fantasy family of artists through that company out of the Bay Area. That's her in the era. You can't really see her the way they shot her there. But I mean, she even has a song on here, first off, that says, "Let There Be Funk." So Patrice was not playing. The big first hit off of the record is the first song on the album. It's called The Hump. Title track is Shout It Out. Stepping Stones, which is more of a hip, Quiet Storm kind of thing, but it was also very, very, very much grooving. Let Your Heart Be Free is a vocal track where she really got to sing solo. Most of the other vocals on the album are kind of shout, chant, group vocal things. So that one was really sweet. Roll with the Punches, kicked off side 2. Yolan, which is my personal, it's just such a beautiful track, man. There's really nothing funky about that, but it was written by Reggie Andrews, who played a very big part in Patrice's career, as a colleague, but also as an educator. And last tune on the album, Sojourn, which is just an amazing instrumental composition that was later covered by Kevin Eubanks, the guitar player. And he did a great version of it where he went from acoustic guitar on the head to electric guitar. Patrice Rushen, arranger, singer, songwriter, keyboardist, just an amazing, amazing talent. And Shout It Out was her beginning of really letting people know that she was not going to be just a jazz artist. She had a lot to say in the contemporary funk, soul, R&B, as well as contemporary jazz worlds. My girl.
Nice. Now, I forgot, is she singing on that one as well,
Yes.
or no? Yeah.
Yeah, she's singing all. There's a lot of songs that have vocals on this album. That's another element that was introduced because I do not believe she sang on the first two albums. So this album, like I said, was really her coming out. You know, she was in her, I believe by this point, early 20s. And she was letting everybody know that, yes, I really play the jazz for real, but I am a girl of this era, and you're going to hear all of my blackness, all my culture, all the music that I love, you know, from the streets on that record and beyond.
Nice. I remember, I think I think she said on my show actually that Earth, Wind and Fire played their school at one point, which
They
was
did.
nice. So maybe the Al McKay, I don't know if that connection came from that, but
It might have, but yeah, I think they played either their grad night or graduation, a prom night, something like that. And I think that Patrice actually did. I mean, she got to not only experience it from whatever the performance was. She went to Locke High School, which is a fiercely musical high school in Los Angeles, black, you know, inner city school. And so she was there for the sound checks, rehearsals, whatever. And I'm sure that she developed some really good connections with several members of the band. But Al McKay, definitely, he's on the record.
love it. Love it. Good pick, Scott. Way to get us going. Katie, what do you have for us?
Well, first of all, Scott, you already took one of mine out. That was on my list. I've got it, the CD version of that sitting here.
So sorry, my brother. So sorry.
Oh, no, man. It just shows that you've got wonderful taste in music, which I already knew. So,
And the CD is great because she did the liner notes for the CD. So people out there, if you can buy the CD, she wrote the liner notes herself, which just makes it a whole nother reason to buy it.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, for my first pick, I am going to go a little bit out of left field. My first pick is actually an album that I talked about on last week's show. They just released a 50th anniversary special edition of the album. I have the vinyl, but I don't have it with me. So I went to my CD rack and bringing up a double CD featuring Unfinished Business and City Life by the Blackbyrds is
For me, our kindred, bro.
Yeah, okay, I'll scratch that one off.
We are kindred.
City Life is my pick. So
Wow.
City Life 1975, I believe. And that album, I mean, the Blackbyrds had already released two albums by that time, but this one was the one that really opened me up to them. Donald Byrd produced it, you know, the Mizell brothers, heavy influence. But I mean, everything, this album is just banging. From the opening cut, Rock Creek Park, to, you know, Thankful About Yourself, which starts out kind of this country type vibe, but then it kicks it in. City Life, love it. All I Ask is gorgeous, just smooth as it wants to be. Of course, my favorite song, Happy Music, Love So Fine, mellow, Flying High, mid-tempo, and then Hash and Eggs, which is just good funk right there. Love it. So, you know, it is slamming. The Blackbyrds, I think it's their best album. Although I really love Unfinished Business. I love that one as well. But City Life is the one for me. The band is just tight. They're just playing tight. So my pick, Mary Clayton, vocals, outstanding. So much soul that she added to it. The 50th anniversary edition has extended versions of Happy Music, Rock Creek Park, and All I Ask. So
All I Ask, really?
All I Ask, yeah, they add another 2 minutes to it.
Oh my goodness! Now I'm gonna have to get that. Tommy Morgan.
I'm making a note about that.
On that one, he played harmonica on that piece, and it was written by my man Kevin Toney. And wow, man, you know, Yeah, I love City Life. I picked Unfinished Business, which I'm not going to use in the show now, because I thought it was a little more funk based. There's more
Mhm.
funk on Unfinished Business than City Life, but of all of the Blackbyrds albums, City Life is easily their masterpiece.
Well, with unfinished business, I mean, the cut that I wore out on that one was "Time Is Moving." I
Yes,
the mess out of that one, still
Yes,
do.
sir. Yes, sir.
Organ solo on that are just it's insane.
yeah,
Master.
Evan Tony.
Yep.
Yeah. So when we talk about the different mixes, I would say that is, you know, uh, jazzy funk, or, I mean, it's definitely a hybrid with the
Ab-
Blackbyrds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just so we know who all those cats were, is Keith Kilgo on drums, Orville Saunders on guitar, Joe Hall on bass, Kevin Tony, and I forget the sax chair changed with every album. I think that
Mhm.
cat's name was Steven something or other. Well, let us know who that was.
If you don't have it handy, KD, I see here's a Steven Johnson.
Yeah, Steven
Steven
Johnson.
Johnson.
All right. Well, love that one. That's an all-time great City Life. Woo,
Yes,
badass.
Well, I would say that's funk adjacent or jazz adjacent. I would say because of the Donald Byrd immersed in jazz, they are the younger proteges who who just continued his funkiness, if you will, and expanded it.
absolutely. They were his backup band live, and then
Mhm.
he would make appearances on their albums. I think on that one he's playing on what Happy Music.
Mhm.
They're on Happy Music.
Happy music.
That
Yeah.
guitar strum. Oof.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right. Boom. All right. So, KD, great pick. Thank you. Phil, how are you going to start off?
Well, I'm going to start off with a guy who, you name your top 5 groups, sometimes bands, and sometimes you name your top 5 quote unquote solo artists. And this guy is consistently in my top 5 solo artists, any genre, uh, every time. And his funk chops are actually what turned me on to his jazz chops. And I want to say the year was 1977. 77, 78, 77, I believe, possibly 76, when they dropped this monster right here on us.
Mhm.
George Duke reached for it.
Masterpiece.
George Duke reached for it. Man, opened up a whole new world of funk and jazz for me. It came on the radio back in the day, sophomore in high school, junior, whatever. Had a car, so it might have been a junior, and it dropped on the radio. And boom, boom, boom. Now that this funk is on this side of and I knew, and I'm such a Parliament Funkadelic connoisseur that I knew it wasn't Bootsy. A
Mhm.
lot of people were like, "Oh, that's Bootsy," or always. I knew from like as soon as I heard, I'm like, "Well, that ain't Bootsy." But whoever it is, it's the Bootsy vibe. And he's talking, drop you off into some boom. It was definitely on the one. It was on the one. And he's even said on multiple occasions that he was playing homage to the P-Funk when he did it. So, a lot of people are like, oh, he needed the P-Funk to make a hit and this. And I'm like, no, he didn't, because this dude is super genius in his own right. But he was the kind of guy that could do whatever he wanted to musically. And he decided to drop a major funk bomb on our ass at that moment. And and he dropped it. Man, he dropped the funk bomb. So, and we've said before, at that age, when something dropped, your next move, especially by then I had a car. So your next move when you hear something like that, and I had a job. So my next move was always the record store. So I don't know where I was when Reach For It hit, but I had to turn corners, head to Berry Street, go to Sound Warehouse. Bought the 8-track. Bought the 8-track. Because I didn't have because when you wanted to hear it right away, you had to buy the 8-track so you could pop it in driving out the parking lot, and bought the 8-track. And man, at the very beginning, you hear all this weird, so I was like, okay, that's different. But in the day back then, I was doing what I did as a youngster. And, then he hit you with Let Me At It and Hot Fire, back to back, just straight banging music, musicians to this day, this is one of my go-to albums because it's musicians playing music. And, they dropped it. Then they hit you with Reach For It. So I'm halfway home by the time that comes on. And then they go into Just For You, which is like really smooth. Matter of fact, funky, jazzy, smooth. Just For You. Funky, jazzy, smooth. Then they go into Omni Freshwater, which is another just instrumental banger. And, George Duke had that Brazilian type of vibe and percussion and all that to his music,
Yeah.
Searching My Mind was like just some funky, groovy shit with the girls singing. And then he hit you with him and Stanley Clarke doing Watch Out, Baby. And,
Come on now.
That was just another funk bomb all of a sudden, man. Watch out, baby. So I'm like, oh, man. Do, 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 boom, boom. So then the girls are singing, You Can Make Ookie Inside My Wookie and and all of that, and then he hit you with the Here It Comes, so that there. Then he hit you with Diamonds, which was another just jazzy, banging it out track to you again. Hit you with The End. And then, on the CD, they got that Bring It On Home, which is just some smoothed out, funky. Boom, 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 boom. So, man, that's my pick for number one. That is like almost what you would call quintessential jazz funk album from beginning to end. George Duke brought it with that Reach For It album. That's my pick.
Mm-hmm.
I had this one as an alternate because I always felt that it was, it has definitely, landmark funk with the title track. But this to me was a around the world with George record, man. You got Latin, you got Brazilian, you got Brazilian with Diamonds, you got Latin with Hot Fire, you got Africa with Omi Freshwater. He was taking us around the globe with the funk and everything. I love this record. You have to give it up for Byron Miller, the bass player.
Yes.
You must. And Byron just put out a brand new remake of the song Reach For It. Oh. He played the original bass that he played on the session, George Duke, and then he plays one of his other basses as well. And Ndugu Chancellor is the drummer. He's also the one who did all the talk on the beginning of Reach For It. Let me take it to the bridge, Bubble, and all that stuff. That was Ndugu. And another legendary person who, again, was, I'm not trying to just talk or what, but, Ndugu and Patrice were just a whole nother Locke from Locke High School.
Oh, is he from there too? He's from there as well?
I learned the hard way. He wasn't born in LA. He was born in New Orleans.
Okay.
But he did. They were schoolmates at Locke High, and Patrice. And the last two people that I would definitely credit on this record would be the engineer and the mastering engineer. And I'm gonna tell you what, Kerry McNabb was the engineer and Johnny Golden was the remaster. Do you know how good your freaking CD sounds of the Reach For It? The album already sounded amazing on vinyl.
That remastered version.
When they put it out on CD, you got all the depth, all the everything. It was an amazing piece of work from top to bottom. I just consider it a jazz fusion masterpiece. And it had a lot of funk on there. And come on, watch out, baby. It's the first time I heard an R-roll recreation of an orgasm. Watch Out, Baby was something else. Something else.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
Right on. Well, thank you for that, Phil. We got to keep moving along. George Duke, though, what a giant. I was close to picking either Master of the Game or Follow the Rainbow. That's how deep he goes.
Right.
But for my first pick, I remember back in mid 70s hearing, they would do a lot of commercials on the radio stations for records and they would play excerpts, and that was a great way to get exposed to some stuff that maybe you otherwise would not. And I remember hearing these clips and thinking, what the hell is that? That is unbelievable. So funky. Instrumentals. Incredible. Who the hell is this? Because I was in a P-Funk then and all that. And it was, of course, Herbie Hancock, Man-Child.
So many choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so many choices. For me, he's like the king of jazz funk or funk jazz, whatever you want to call it. But this record in particular that has, a big cast on it, it's still got the Headhunters. It's their last record with him, but it's greatly expanded. It's also got, Blackbyrds part of the Headhunters, but Walla Watson and Louis Johnson is on a great cut. James Gatson, along with Harvey Mason, and Stevie Wonder pops up on harmonica. So the tracks in particular that just kill me still, the Hang Up Your Hang-Ups, unbelievable with that springy, really insistent like groove and the drums kicking in and the breakdowns and the sax, unreal. Trader, which is the one with Louis Johnson on bass, it's like over 9 minutes of just funk on, another planet. It's got like Bernie Worrell type like keyboard solos, the synth. Herbie is just killing it on every imaginable keyboard on this album, from the piano, the electric, to the Fender Rhodes, to the synthesizers, everything, killing it. And Stepping in It, the one that has Stevie playing the solo, what a great harmonica solo too. I mean, he just comes in with that sort of like, he steps in it, literally the way he hits that off kind of harmonica note, mixing notes and goes off into it. And just the groove on that, it's like a Moog groove or something. I mean, who knew jazz could get that funky? I mean, Chameleon gave you some idea, but man, this just took it to the bridge to the max. And even Heartbeat that closes it out is another funk jam killer. This one has like the horns playing in unison in the parts, so it's got like the funk kind of horns, which really adds to it as well. And just the wah-wah is like an MVP on those guitar picking grooves, man. I can't say enough about this album. Anyone who doesn't have it, you must get it immediately. It doesn't have any pictures of the band in this. It's just got the artwork, but yeah.
One of the main reasons for that is it's a different band on just about every song. It was an in-between record for him. And he was using a lot of different people. So we all know Hang Up Your Hang-Ups was also sampled by Janet Jackson Jam and Lewis or Janet Jackson on something from her The Meet Joe album. I can't remember the title of it. It wasn't my pick, so I didn't do that research. And I love Heartbeat. Heartbeat is a serious jazz fusion masterpiece. It's in 4, but it doesn't feel like it's in 4. That's Mike Clark playing drums on that one. And oh my God. Yeah. That was like that's the last Headhunters cut. His Heartbeat just kind of got stuck on the end of Man-Child. But man, Heartbeat for the heads, the musicians.
It's got a little vocal thing in it too. You can hear like going through like a keyboard or something. There's a little vocal element to that one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice pick, Scott.
Hey, thank you. I was just glad that no one else picked it. Thank you for not picking it.
You got your Headhunters t-shirt on. Let's not overlook that. He's repping for Herbie.
That was my alternate in case.
No doubt.
All right, guys. Let's circle it back to get number 2 with Scott.
Number 2 from my number 1. For people that know me, I'm a drummer. And this is my number 1 dude of all time, Brother Tony Williams. Anthony Tillman Williams. Godhead, the man. So much I could say about him and his legacy, from Miles Davis and Jackie McLean to starting his own band in Tony Williams' lifetime, with John McLaughlin out of London on guitar. He brought him here, and then Miles stole him. And Larry Young on organ for the original Lifetime. This record is called Believe It, and it's from 1975. And this is after he had done 4 albums of changing versions of his band, Lifetime. He came back on Columbia. Those albums were on Polydor. Came to Columbia Records, and now he has what? The new Tony Williams Lifetime. All right, this album's called Believe It, and people could not believe it when they heard it. This album features, his band was Tony Newton on bass. Tony Newton out of Detroit, had done Motown stuff. He had done, he was a member of the band The Eighth Day, Holland Dozier Holland, Hot Wax Records. He was a very funky dude, but he was also, rocker, and he knew his jazz. And for the first time, if you're a drummer, you know that Tony didn't really play pocketed funk. His funk was very much, as a drummer, he was a jazz rock funketeer. He wasn't sitting in any pockets. He was dropping bombs and explosions and polyrhythmicking up the groove and all that sort of thing. But with Tony Newton as his bass player for this record, this is the funkiest that you're going to get Tony. I could talk about all of his records. And the other beautiful thing that he did is he had an incredible guitar player that he kind of helped bring to prominence. He didn't introduce him, but he brought him to a whole nother level. Another English guy, Alan Holdsworth, a complete pioneer of the electric guitar and later the syntax. This guy was he was more influenced by saxophonists than he was guitar players. So he had this liquid, fluid approach to playing his instrument. And then you had a very solid cat on keyboards named Alan Pasqua. I don't know if you can really see it, but those are the cats. They're all there in here. Tony Newton, Alan Pasqua, Tony Williams, Alan Holdsworth. So another beautiful thing about this record is that Tony didn't hog up all of the compositional credit. He was usually the writer on all of his stuff on previous albums. Everybody here got to contribute a song or two to this record, and nobody dropped the ball. First song is called Snake Oil. It is deep, just seriously stupid, oily funk. Snake Oil. That was written by bassist Tony Newton. Next song, Fred, which is just probably so many drummers shedding and learning their instrument turn to Fred, because it's just an amazing piece of music. It swings, very hi-hat oriented, and just amazing. That song was contributed by Alan Holdsworth. The next song, Protocosmos, just serious, syncopated, punctuated, funk, and then it goes into a nice groove. Again, that was Alan Pasqua that contributed that song to the album. And you got Mr. Spock, which was, no, that's toward the end. That's the end of the record. Mr. Spock was Alan Holdsworth. You have Red Alert, which was a Tony Newton song. The only song Tony Williams wrote for this record is probably the smoothest cut on the album, but he's still he always put his foot in that bass drum, man. And that song is called Wildlife, which was not named after animals. It was named after a street that he lived on in the Bay Area. So Tony Williams, man, first of all, you need to get every single album, people, that this man did as a leader. I could sit here and have school with people 5 hours about all the stuff he did just as a leader. But this record, when we're talking about jazz, funk fusion, this is as funky as Tony got, in my humble opinion. He's a hero for me. I love him. Get this record. The new Tony Williams Lifetime. Believe it.
You made quite a great case, Scott. And talk about, we have a parade of legends right here. I mean, just one after another.
I got to write that down.
That one came out the same year as Manchild, 275.
Yes, absolutely. And they're both on Columbia record. Columbia was holding it down. Columbia had Turner Forever, Weather Report, My Vishnu Orchestra. I mean, they had Columbia was, basically jazz fusion central at that time in the 70s.
All right. Nice. Number 2. Thank you, Scott.
Good pick, Scott. I got to check that out.
Yeah,
Oh, please.
for sure.
I already made 2 notes. I noted on the 50th anniversary of Blackbyrds and the Byron back with another version of Reach For It. So we're gonna learn a lot of stuff, I think, ourselves on this one. KD, what do you got?
Okay, well, thank you, Scott and Scott. So I'm going to continue on the jazz adjacent vibe. And my next selection is by a group that only released one album. And this one album is a crate digger's delight, as they say. The album is Coming to Knowledge by Ramp.
Right.
And some folks would argue that this is an R&B album, but Ramp is Roy Ayers Music Productions. And Roy's fingerprints, footprint, handprint, whatever you want to call it, whatever you can leave an impression on, is all over this particular record. It is one classic after another, starting with American Promise. Erykah Badu sampled that one heavily. It's like just a funk, grooving, grinding song. It just cut after cut. You go from that, and let me just look at the jacket here, because I don't have my glasses on, so I got to look a little closer. So if I hold it up like this, I Just Love You, smooth. Give It, funk. Then you got maybe the best cover of Everybody Loves the Sunshine. I mean, Roy's version is, the creme de la creme. This one comes a close second. It's mellow. They slow it down, take it. It's almost a very, very, almost like a hymn. It's like a hymn that they do with it, and it's just beautiful. Then Coming to Knowledge, which is just a heavy, heavy, culturally significant spiritual vibe there. Try, funky. Then, the cut that sampled a zillion times, Daylight, but it is just gorgeous. It's my go-to. Love to play that song over and over again. Look Into the Sky. This is your change up the groove song there. And then the last cut is kind of, it's a little bit kind of what's the best way to describe it? I guess you could almost say it's a doo-wop-ish. It's what is it? God, I can't read. I'm sorry.
Deep Velvet.
Deep Velvet. Thank you very much. Got to wear those readers next time. But yeah, it's doo-wop-ish, and it's just a great album from beginning to end. Shout out to the 2 female vocalists on it, Sharon Matthews and Sybil Thrasher, and I find their vocals really different. I mean, because I guess in the greatest sense of the word, you probably would say they're magnificent vocals, but the fact is, on this record, what they contribute to it is perfect, absolutely perfect. I think that I said that they only released one album. They did, however, after breaking up, they got back together. And so they were performing local dates. I think they did a date in DC maybe 6 years ago or so. So, Ramp is still around and doing their thing. And in fact, they did release a statement on the website, acknowledging the passing of Roy Ayers, who they called their king. And great album. Like I said, folks might argue that it's R&B. It's jazz funk to me.
Now, did Ramp share any members with Ubiquity?
I don't believe they did, but Ubiquity was constantly changing. And so as my kind of backup to this, because I was going to go to, the tried and true predictable Everybody Loves the Sunshine. And this particular set here is 5 CDs on 3 compact discs, basically running from A Tear to a Smile, Mystic Voyage, Everybody Loves the Sunshine, Vibrations, and Lifeline, all on 3 discs. Great set. But, if I had gone with Everybody Loves the Sunshine, I would have shouted out Philip Wu and Chicas as the MVPs on that album. But I decided to go with Ramp and kind of spice it up a little bit.
I think I want to give a shout out to Edwin Birdsong too. Played a big role on that. Yeah,
for sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think that qualifies as a bit of a curveball too. I think some people are going to discover that because you shared it, KD. So outstanding. All right. Thanks for that one. Moving on to number 2 for Phil.
All right. Number 2 for me. I think we've hinted at it at a previous show, and I'm not sure if anybody put it on a subsequent topic that you had when I wasn't on. But this has always been one of my all-time favorite jazz funk albums. And I must admit, I was a little late to the party. Sometimes we discover an artist and then we got to go back to what they did previously. And this album right here, I hope I'm not breaking the rules because I'm kind of changing them up some. It's another George Duke album, but it's George Duke, Billy Cobham. So, I'm thinking with George Duke.
There he reveals the shirt.
I'm thinking with George Duke, Billy Cobham, I'm kind of changing up. It's one of the iconic album covers of all times. When I put out my favorite album covers, it's on there. This was a promotional copy, so it's, got the little sticker on it, so you can't really see the whole cover and whatnot. But man, back to front, jazz funk. I mean, it opens up with a jazz funk tour de force with hip pockets, and it closes with a jazz funk tour de force with Juicy. And in between those tracks, Ivory Tattoo, Space Lady, Al Mustafa the Beloved, Sweet Wine, Frankenstein Goes to the Disco, Do What You Wanna. You got Do What You Wanna, just like a really smoothed out, could have been on any R&B radio, smooth jazz or the, slow jam mix or whatever back in the day. It was really that smooth. Man, Space Lady was just some really, a lot of Black artists were going into space in 75, 76, 77. It was, I think George Clinton's son, Rod, those cats, they kind of made it popular to take it to the space vibe, but I mean, they weren't the only ones doing it. And, George Duke and Billy Cobham, they're killing it almost basically on just keys and drums, telling the story about meeting a woman from outer space and how she came down and how the whole vibe went meet them. So that's like, really, really interesting. Man, the players on this album, it's like 4 cats in a way, man. Billy Cobham, George Duke, Alphonso Johnson, and John Schofield on guitar. And they just rip it up, through the whole thing. Everybody gets a chance to shine. I mean, everybody gets a chance to shine. And it's just one of those albums that beginning to end, like if you're a cat like me, or just somebody who your funk is not, and your jazz, I guess, it's not in a box that, I like for it to go here, and then I like for it to go here, and then take me over here. It's not one particular sound per se, but it is because it's the same cats creating the sound. So, without just, really belaboring the fact, those cats toured Europe, man, they did like, just glancing at it, man, I think they did like 15 shows, from Oslo to London, and just traveling and just putting that funk and jazz down every night. And these guys right here, this is probably one of my all-time favorite albums. And when we start talking jazz, funk, fusion, it's gonna always make my list. Always.
There a picture of the whole band on the back? I can't remember.
Yeah, they got individual pictures of the band. They're not showing them together, but they just got.
Oh yeah, here you go. Billy
individual.
Cobham, Alfonso Johnson on bass, Duke, and then Schofield guitar.
And there's a lot of YouTube videos out of this particular tour. So you can go on YouTube and see a lot of videos of this tour and watch those guys getting down. And man, Alfonso Johnson was just amazing. Just amazing.
Went on to be weather report.
Yep. Just amazing, man. So man, this is one of my top jazz funk albums all times.
Add to that is that George Duke used to always say that, Zappa played with over here, that he learned from Zappa that, as badass and as chops heavy and as whatever as the music could be, he said, don't ever leave out room for humor. And he said that he learned that from Zappa. And on that album where you got was it Frankenstein? And, there's a lot of crazy, fun stuff on this record, right alongside the sexiness and, of course, the we're badasses, we're going to play you up under the table. But the thing that he said that he learned, one of the things George learned most from Zappa was to never be afraid to have humor in your music.
And he does, and he always, for a lot of his albums from that mid 70s era and beyond, Duke always, you could even tell they were having a great time in the studio because a lot of stuff that would be outtakes on somebody else's music makes it actually onto his records, because it's like, man, let's just start the tape rolling and we're going to start talking crazy to each other. And then we're going to fall into this groove. And you know what? Let's just keep this all on the album. And, I really dug that about Duke, man, because he, music chops second to none. But like Scott Galloway just said, man, like A. Scott said, the humor was, always in there, Duke. Who else had a Dookie stick?
Well, in talking about the humor, it shows up even on some of his later works, like Dookie Treat. That album had, some craziness. He kind of got back into that really deep funk zone.
Turn up the treat beat.
Exactly.
All right. Great pick, Phil. Thank you for that one. I think whatever other picks we have, we're not going to come up with anything that's better fusion than that record. Maybe, on a similar par, but that one, as far as fusion goes, doesn't get much better. Great pick. Thanks. My next pick, number 2 for me, is probably my favorite jazz band of all time. And I think certainly for me, the funkiest jazz band. And out of all their records, hard for me to pick one, but I got to go with the one that really hooked me in the most originally. And it's Crusaders, those Southern Nights. These guys, unbelievable the way they would lock into a groove. The chemistry of these guys. And this record, from the opening Spiral, just incredible tapestry of sounds in that, and the solos they take, and that syncopated rhythm, it just kills. Great guitar solo. Keep That Same Old Feeling was the mid-tempo hit from this that had some vocals. And Wayne Henderson on the trombone, just killing it, so sweet. My Mama Told Me So, super funky again after that one. Should say Larry Carlton was on guitar, just killing it. I think Carlton and Schofield, who you had last, are just two of the best. And then there was the blues. over 9 minutes of just slow down, locked in, just grooving like only the Crusaders can. Again, that one has some vocals too. And then closing it out with Feeling Funky. They close this up as hard and funky as they started it. Just great. Produced by Stuart Levine, who produced so many of their outstanding works. And of course, Joe Sample, besides Wayne Henderson, and Stix Hooper on drums, and Wilton Felder on bass, and sax, of course, and Robert Popwell, the Crusaders. Just awesome group. And of course, a play on the words of Southern Nights, a little bit of fun with the cover, not maybe on a George Duke Frank Zappa level, but still kind of fun.
That's a great album. That's a great band album cover. All of them on the beach, having a feast. And that was Larry Carlton's last album with the Crusaders. He had been with them for about 8 or 9 records and was very instrumental to helping them cross over. And, but yeah, great album. Keep That Same Old Feeling was on the radio for a long time. And that song just makes me feel so good. It just has those connections that they keep repeating over and over. The vamp, and then they just keep keep that, and then they just give it up for you. I mean, it's just joy after tension, release. Tension, it's classic.
Just the way they could swing with their grooves.
Well, for that album, it was the bass grooves. The bass grooves on that. Boom, 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 and they just, it's like Scott just said, I just keep hitting you with do 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 do. And then
there was the blues.
Yeah. So yeah, man, that was a
great album.
That was yeah. I had some Crusaders on my list, and maybe we'll bring another one up, maybe not now. But yeah, when you brought that one up, that Southern, yeah, that was a groove, man. That's a what do you call them? Head bobbing album. It was a head bobber.
Excellent.
And that was from, I don't know if I said it's from 76, that one.
Yeah. And one of those sampled by somebody, the My Mama, something, that song, Tupac, somebody sampled that record.
Oh, Dear Mama. Dear Mama. Yeah, that's it.
I don't know if it was that song, but that song was sampled by somebody in hip hop. And after what happened to me last time with hip hop, I ain't going no further. I ain't saying nothing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, I think of a hit for the Crusaders, they think Street Life, but they had a pretty good hit before that with Keep That Same Old Feeling. So,
oh, they had several.
Right on. All right, we're going to number 3, round 3. Scott, what do you got hooked up?
This is probably my most left field of the lefts. And this is a guitar player that from Japan. And he did several wonderful, wonderful records. But when he did this one in '84, released in Japan as one album called Mobo, but here in America, it was split up into 2 albums, Mobo 1 and Mobo 2. Kazumi Watanabe.
Okay.
All right. These records in America, but this record in Japan, double album. Let me just tell you something. When I say Robbie Shakespeare and Sly Dunbar, Marcus Miller and Omar Hakim, Steve Jordan, Kei Akagi, Don Grolnick, and Michael Brecker, all through the songs on this album. So funky, so innovative. This track called Voyage. Marcus and Omar are just killing it on there with Kazumi. Kazumi, first off, he was probably like the Lee Ritenour, Larry Carlton of Japan. He played a lot of other people, but he was just an amazing technician, but he also had a lot of great feel, rock and jazz and funky stuff. He played electric guitar, he played guitar synthesizer, he did everything. 1984, we're stepping out of the 70s here. And so there's a bit more technology at hand and all of that. And he was right all up in the middle of it. I don't want to take up too much time. Both of these records are outstanding, but this one in America, Mobile One, let me just tell you, there's a song on here called American Short Hair that was like their version of the Police. And Steve Jordan plays drums on this, and he's got backward masking things going on. He's got his timbali snare, and they're just grooving. It's just so funky. I mean, I just told you the Cats, so it's going to be on the one. It's all kind of brothers about this record. But then the next song, I swear to God, Mobo 2 is a whole vibe unto itself. And on this song, he has both rhythm sections on this one song, and he phases between the two of them. Omar with Marcus and Sly and Robbie, and then Michael Brecker soloing over certain parts of it, and and that's it. Yeah, there's no keys on this one, so Kazumi is creating tapestries with several different guitars. Of course, he takes a blazing solo. It's a reggae vibe. It's deep dub. It's a headphones experience. Phil, you need to play that through your headphones that you got on right now. It take you to a whole nother space, man. That's a revolutionary album, and a lot of people, kind of sleep on it. It does have a few things that are lighter, and that's why in Japan, when it was released as a single double album, you had some light things that radio could get off into or whatever. But no, man, when your funk jazz fusion, you must have that album. I don't care if you get the American version. American version was put out by Gramavision and was originally on Domo Records out of Japan. Mm-hmm. Whichever way you can find it, vinyl or CD, I just very strongly suggest you get it. It will probably damn near change your life, especially the song Mobo 2. There's just nothing like it with the double rhythm section and how vibey it is. I'm just gonna stop.
Is he Watanabe, okay? Is he any relation to Sadao Watanabe at all?
I was gonna ask.
I think Watanabe is like Johnson last
like
name.
just a common Asian name.
It's very common in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of people may not be aware. A lot of people may not be aware just of how much great jazz fusion was being done in Japan in the mid to late 70s that laid the groundwork for this pick that you have. And if you go dig into that, there's so much great stuff that most of it was never even released in the US, but it's got just so many of the great US players, on those, and even a few that were by US players like a Paul Jackson or whoever that only got released in Japan. Some of them have subsequently been later released in US, but there's a whole treasure trove to discover.
Yeah, and Japan was really into the technology and all that, and they were also big on direct disc recordings, which is where the musicians would record straight to disc, so there was no, it's like whatever happened went on directly to the disc. Lee Ritenour and Ernie Watts, several people, went over to Japan and made special records just for that market, because in the 70s, Japan was huge into the contemporary jazz thing, and they wanted to have their own releases just for them. And if they did come as imports into America, you better get ready to pay about $50. They were really into having their own.
All right, outstanding pick. We got to keep rolling. I don't know, Katie, did you want to have one final thought on that one, or?
I was just going to say I took some notes on that, Scott. I will definitely be looking into that because I am intrigued. I will definitely be getting a hold of it somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
All right, Carl. Thank you, Scott, for that one. Carl, what do you got for number 3?
Number 3 is an album that probably gets us back, at least gets me back into the more, I suppose, typical jazz funk. It is an album that, frankly, the title cut is, I could say, my theme song, if you will. It is a song that has basically the vocals on it says, when life puts that juju on you, you got to be like me. You got to get your gree. The album is Gary Bartz. Music is My Sanctuary, the title cut. It is only 6 cuts, but they are all very, very good. The first cut, like I said, that's my theme song. Whenever I'm down, put that one on. Sarita Wright, excellent vocal on it. Gary Bartz does this thing on sax. Mizell Brothers all over this album. Second cut, Carnaval de l'Esprit, I believe I pronounced that correctly, is more kind of a smooth jazz, but not totally so. Third cut, gas cover of Love Ballad, Skip Scarborough, great cover of it. Actually, that one, I believe, went top 20 R&B. Fourth cut gets funky again, but it's like it's got an old school vibe to it. It's called Swing Thing, and Gary he rips it on that one. This song is a cover of Ooh Baby Baby, the Smoking Miracles song. Nice cover. I talked about kind of the doo-woppy type of feel to it. This one also has a doo-wop feel to it. It is the 6th cut, the bookends. Music is My Sanctuary, and the last cut, Macaroni, which really sold me on this album. Macaroni starts off with a heavy string. You think it's almost a classical type of thing, and then Sarita again on vocals, Gary Bartz ripping it on sax, and it's just, it's just kind of a grinding type of mellow, smooth, but funky. It's all over the place. It's every element. Basically, Gary went in and just did a smorgasbord on this one song, is what it is. And I love it. Like I said, Mizell Brothers, featured artists, the Mizells, of course. It's got Eddie Henderson, Ray Brown on trumpets. It's got David T. Walker, Wawa Watson on guitars, Mtume, Bill Summers on percussion. It is a great, great, great album. I encourage everybody to get it. If for no other reason than if you're in a bad mood, put this title cut on and you will feel much better. And it's on Blue Note, and it was released in 1977.
Another all-star cast on that one.
Yeah. I love Brother Gary, man. Gary Bartz, Max Roach, Miles, all the different things he went through. My favorite thing about Gary, though, is I always say that he was the best duet partner of Phyllis Hyman, even more so than any of the men that did duets with her, the singers. Gary Bartz was the perfect duet partner with Phyllis. And you go back and listen to Norman Connor's Bet You By Golly Wow, or you go back and No One Is Needed More Than I Love You. No one is needed more than I love you. I always get the title mixed up on that because the title is not the same as the hook. But y'all know what I'm talking about from her very first solo album. And he went on to work with her minor too. Gary Bartz, Phyllis Hyman.
I was going to say, As You Are is also a great Gary Bartz Phyllis song.
No,
well, so.
As You Are is Pharoah Sanders.
Oh, you are right.
Pharoah.
Thank you. Yep. Pharoah Sanders, right.
No worries.
I know the feeling, man. Don't worry about it.
Well, you can be sure of one thing. If we don't get it right, people that watch will put it in the comments and get it right for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for that one, KD. I'm glad it brings you so much joy. I think a lot of these picks we're going with are ones that just do that. I think some of the best jazz funk, I mean, it just infuses you with such a great feeling, you know? It's just such a key aspect of the music and a big reason I think why we all love it so much.
Yes, sir.
Phil, looks like you're digging. You're up
Oh
next.
no, I was looking at I'm ready. It's in my hand.
Go for it.
So man, I kind of feel like I've been going with some of my favorites tonight. I don't think it was intentional, but I think I'm going with some of my favorite all times. And I think I told you guys before, my first instrument was saxophone. And I wanted to be Grover Washington at one point in my life. I thought I was Grover Washington. I thought I was on that track until I really got into basketball and kind of fell off the music scene. But this Grover Washington album right here,
Reed Seed.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, Reed Seed.
Reed Seed, Grover Washington. Man, he's got so many great ones. I mean, he had a really great run when you start talking. I mean, before Mr. Magic kind of put him on the map. But by the time he got to Reed Seed, man, that Grover sound was, because like Knucklehead and Mr. Magic we just talked about, those were kind of gritty. They were he had that gritty kind of funky in the gutter funk sound with those albums. And by the time he got to Reed Seed, man, he had like a really clean, just clean, majestic type of vibe, where I mean, starting out with Do That. And you would just be grooving. And it's like Scott said about the other song. He'll take you right here, and then he'll go into that little bridge and that vamp, and he'll take you up here, and then he'll bring you back down. And they're chanting in that bad boy and making a bunch of noise and everything. And I feel like I sound like Ricky. But yeah. And then he'll take you in a song like Reed Seed, where Grover plays all these different melodies and harmonies with himself. And those songs would just kind of bring you back down and like weave you in there. And then you got a jam like Maracas Beach and Santa Cruz, where he's right back to grooving. And that was like, I lived in California. I mean, it didn't come out when I got to Cali, but the next year I got to Cali, and that was like roll your window down and drive with the windows down, man. I was an East Bay kid back then. It's got a great, great, great cover song of Billy Joel's "Just the Way You Are" on there. It's a lot of people have done that song, but it may be my favorite version of "Just the Way You Are." Just the way, once again, he takes his various saxophones and just weaves the songs together, almost like he's telling a story. I mean, the Billy Joel's version is cool, but this one takes it, to another level. And it closes out with like almost an 8-minute track called Lauren's Dance. And that's another one that just takes you on a musical journey, And he takes you up with that one, and he takes you down, and then he'll just kind of like plateau you for a little while, and then it gets funky to take it out. It just kind of bobs you along, and then the album is over. But man, Reed Seed, Grover Washington, it's kind of like Scott said, he let some of everybody get some. I mean, he wrote like onto 2 of the songs basically on there were Grover Washington songs. John Blake and Dr. Gibbs, wrote a couple of these songs.
Blake violin, Dr. Gibbs percussion.
Yeah, James Simmons, wrote one of them. Richard Stacker brought one. So Grover let everybody get some, because it's like, I'm gonna do my thing, man. I'm gonna play the saxophone, but everybody contribute, and let's make a sound. Let's make a sound that's a band. And that's what I kind of liked about the topic that we're on tonight. Everything that we're talking about tonight is not an individual, even though they may be considered a solo artist. Everything that we're talking about tonight, no matter who the artist is we're talking about, I notice how you have to throw everybody else into the mix. We talked about George Duke, but you had to talk about everybody. You had to talk about who he had with him. You talk about Grover, but you had to talk about who he had. Scott talked about the Blackbyrds, but he had to bring in, we've all done that all night. And I thought, even maybe subconsciously, I thought that when this topic came up, that, man, it's a great topic because you got to encompass everybody. It's not just like the guy. So even if you go with an individual, quote unquote, solo artist, a Gary Bartz, the Grover Washington, you've got to acknowledge the players. And
absolutely 100.
That's what I like about the topic that we're talking about tonight is you have to, by default, acknowledge the players. Mm-hmm. So my number 3, Grover Washington Reed. See, guys, a lot of us that are in this circle right here are 4. We have these, but if you see this and you're watching this when Dr. Scott G puts this up, this is one, if you've been a Grover fan or you just got Mr. Magic or no heads up, go get this one. You won't be disappointed.
Nice.
Yeah, sax was my instrument too, and Grover was my hero, my favorite sax player. Got all those records. And the same band, Locksmith, that was on Live at the Bijou, most of those guys that I picked on the other show, that's such a phenomenal album too. And Santa Cruzan, I think, is on that one as well. But yeah, he's all over the map, and everything he does so well.
Yeah, I love Grover. I loved him particularly on the Kudu CTI stuff. And I did have a Grover as an alternate. I'm not going to use it now. And my Grover was Feels So Good. It Feels So Good. Mm-hmm. Because that album, between the title track, Knucklehead, which you mentioned, and Hydra,
yeah.
Forget about it. Lewis Johnson, all that. I mean, that's the funky Grover album. The first song on that album, was that the Sea Lion? That one was kind of different. And then the Gorgeous Moon Shadows, which is not funk at all, but Moon Stream. Oh man, when I interviewed Grover, I had to ask him about that song because that was my song. I'm not going to talk about it here. Mm-hmm. But wow, man. Yeah, It Feels So Good was going to be one of my alternates. And I think that is the funky. And Mr. Magic was really funky too. And great players, great arrangements, great engineering, great everything. Those Kudu CTI records and Soulbox too.
I was about to say Soulbox. Mm-hmm.
Come on, Carl. Yeah. I mean, that era.
With the masterpiece. Oh, my gosh. Trollman.
Yeah, Reed is tight, too. Reed was nice, but, man, mine was Feels.
Yeah.
Grover that was my guy, man. That was just
Philly's
so many
finest.
great albums that when they come out, I was down with every track.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Phil. Another great pick. And I keep it moving. We're going to round out round 3 here with mine. And I'm going with another keyboardist. This is a guy who, kind of eventually fell into maybe sort of a smooth, the for some dreaded smooth jazz category. But for me at this time, he was, well, first of all, at that time, that genre or category wasn't even in existence. So you didn't think in those terms. But, he had some smoothness to him, but he also had some funk. And it was kind of subtle in the way it infiltrated, I think, most of the stuff he did. And I'm talking about Bob James. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the full record, but I got Heads. This is what I'm going with. I could have gone with a lot of them.
That was an alternate. I had that on the list.
Yeah, I gotta go with Heads.
Bob James Heads. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But Phil, that's the one that Bob James. You had Heads on your alternate, or some other Bob?
No, an alternate. Bob James Heads.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
If anyone has there's the
Go
full
ahead,
cover.
man.
There we go. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he had it too.
Yeah.
So
that was one of my albums, man.
the title track that kicks it off, over 6 minutes, almost 7 minutes, just kick in, great piano. We're All Alone, a Boss Skaggs tune. Again, another nice one, great electric piano in that one. It's got a lot of songs by famous people. Peter Frampton has a cut. Billy Preston's You Are So Beautiful. Nightcrawler is another one of my favorite jams on here.
Mhm.
Great sax, great guitar solos. I mean, the players on this, we're talking about, being all inclusive of the players. I'm going to give you a little bit of a roster here of who's on this one. It's a lot of the cats that he played with, throughout his career, which helped him immeasurably. But Richard T., Steve Kahn on guitars, Eric Gale on guitars, Alfonso Johnson on bass, Will Lee on bass, Gary King on bass, Steve Gadd on the drums, Andy Newmark on drums, Ralph McDonald. I'm not done yet. Hold on. Turn the page on these cats. Also, just in the horn section, Michael Brecker, David Sanborn, Grover's on here. Both Brecker brothers, Joe Faddis. Yeah, John Faddis. It goes just on and on. And, for me, it was hard to choose one of his records because I think a lot of them are kind of neck and neck.
Mhm.
But those two cuts, Heads and Nightcrawler, for me, I think are as funky as he ever got. And so I had to go with this one. And, they got a lot of airplay on stations I was listening to back in the day. So, he popularized a lot of jazz to a lot of folks because it was accessible, what he did. And I think he's underrated by some. So that's my third pick.
Very much so. When I was kind of going back through this category, at first I couldn't think of anybody. I'm thinking like maybe 4 groups. And I was like, man, I know. But then it just started coming to me and this album was one of them. Because man, that not Heads, but what's the other one? Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is one of the funkiest jazz fusion songs. Like that bass groove is boom, 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 boom. And then he's got the horns coming in real smooth.
Just slinky, too.
Yeah. But whenever I hear Bob James, I think of Taxi.
Right.
Because, Bob James wrote the theme to, what's it called? Angela's theme. Angela's theme, the theme from Taxi. So whenever I think Bob James, I always go back to Taxi. But yeah, Scott, that was a great pick, man. I was a high school kid wearing that album out on a regular basis, like at night, staying up in the middle of the night jamming off my Bob James. So man, that's a good pick. Great memories.
There's something about his style. It's hard for me to put a finger on it that I just like. Even despite myself sometimes when it's like, oh, this is going a little maybe too like this way, but still, I don't know.
The thing about it is Bob James was really accessible. And I think the fact that, like you said, there's that funkiness in the Heads album exemplifies it. Because you do have, You Are So Beautiful, I'm in You, We're All Alone. Okay, popish, nice pop jazz or jazz pop or smooth jazz as it came to be known as. But then you do have Heads and you do have Nightcrawler. And on other albums, you got, Westchester. Bob James could kick it when he was kicking it, he really kicked it. So no, great choice. I have Bob James over here as well as kind of my alternate pick. So Heads and Touchdown as well. I thought Touchdown was a really
good. It was.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I love Bob James. I adore Bob James. And I've interviewed him a couple of times with foreplay, solo, and all of that. And I couldn't come up with one for this show because for every funky cut he would have on the best of his albums, even going back to the very first one, Bob James 1, there were so many other types of things on there that I said, no, I can't put this as a top 5 great funk album. But please, if somebody wants to come up with a Bob James funk compilation, it will blow people's heads off. I mean, you go into Nautilus, you go into Night on Bald Mountain. Like my man said, there's Touchdown, there's Westchester Lady. Oh my God, yeah. Bob James 3, that's when he really started connecting with the brothers. Never, and it said featuring Grover Washington, and Grover was so hot at the time. But yeah, I love Bob James, but I could not settle on one album that I felt was a funk masterpiece.
That's
Yeah,
great
I went
logic.
through the
Great
same thing
logic.
too, but yeah, so Heads to me was the most because of those 3 tracks, really. The 2 we
Yeah.
mentioned and the second one. So,
And also a heavily, 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 heavily sampled jazz artist in hip hop.
all right. Well, we're ready to roll to number 4. If you're ready, Mr. Galloway.
And number 4.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, y'all.
Another keyboardist.
Ramsey Lewis. This cat right here in the middle. What a legend. Miss him so much. We just lost him, last year, I think? Incredible man. Had so many crossover hits throughout his career. He was jazz crossover before people even having a name for it. The In Crowd and the whole album of Beatles material. And Sun Goddess, of course. And even this record I have here, Solar Wind, where he did incredible versions of 2 Seals and Crofts songs, Hummingbird and Summer Breeze. But after Sun Goddess, Ramsey Lewis, Maurice White used to be in Ramsey's second trio, his second great trio after Young and Holt, L.D. Young and Red Holt. And then Maurice left him and became a superstar with Earth, Wind, and Fire. After the Sun Goddess record, where Maurice came back and said, "Let me help you out," and gave him Hot Dog It and the title track, Sun Goddess, which was not even supposed to be the hit. Maurice swore up and down Hot Dog It was going to be the hit. This became the title track of the album and one of the most beloved jazz funk fusion songs of all time, featuring Don Myrick of the Phoenix Horns on sax. But now we're talking about this was the follow-up album to Sun Goddess, and Ramsey picked up a thing or 5 from Reese, and he created a whole nother band. Before, he had the Ramsey Lewis trio. After that, everything was pretty much trio oriented with more electric. But he said Ram got funky with the clothes, with everything, with the, it's like we going with the funk. Another very important factor of this period for Ramsey was that he was working, like Maurice, with the late, great Charles Stepney, who was a great orchestrator, arranger, producer, keyboardist, songwriter, all of the things. Funk got good to Ram, and he did this record. I wanted to really focus on this one. I mean, the other stuff I did was really jazz, funk, fusion, hardcore, the cats that burn and got the chops and all that. Ramsey had chops for days. But no, man, this record is so funky. He got a couple of hits off of this record. He got on Soul Train with this album. First of all, the title track, Don't It Feel Good, with the female background vocals and everything. A very nice guitar. Let me give the cats their due. You have Byron Gregory on guitar. The bass player was T.S. Palmer. That's this cat. Ramsey. Oh my God, my man here. Morris Jennings, one of the most incredible drummers of Chicago sessions and everything. He's on this record up here. I have Phil Upchurch record. Whatever. And then this guy here, another favorite of mine, who contributed beautifully in this album. That's Byron Gregory, and he was the guitar player. Okay, so you got Don't It Feel Good, which was just a beautiful feel-good track. Another cut called Jocelyn, which was a ballad, not funky, but not hardcore funky, but there's Moog and synth bass on this thing that grew so, that song is heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. It's probably one of the most beautiful uses of keyboard bass along with electric bass on that song. and that was written by Byron Gregory. Just an incredible ballad. I don't have enough time. Then Spider-Man. Come on. They did this funky track called Spider-Man on here, man. And they did that on Soul Train. And Spider-Man, just so incredibly funky. I mean, that's probably one of the funkiest things, along with another album track I'm going to talk about in a second. Side one closed out with another gorgeous ballad, Something About You. But it has a really nice backbeat. But don't. And then some odd meter things happening in there. Oh, man. So it's a funk ballad. It's a funky jazz ballad, Something About You. And there's several of those on this record, including I Dig You and Can't Function. But the last two tracks to mention on here is the first cover of That's the Way of the World, which was a whole different arrangement from the one that Maurice and Earth, Wind, and Fire did. Ramsey put it down with his version. And then the last, seriously funky, like just beyond funky, smack you in the face funk on this album is a song called Fish Bite. You talking about, well, I was talking about the humor, George Duke, and be sure to have humor in your music, funk. Don't be afraid of the humor. Fish Bite, man, this is 1975, so it's before Jaws. So they weren't talking about no shark bite. This is Fish Bite. So damn funky, man. So much fun, so sexy. I mean, this record is just a great album that everybody should have. And it is the most commercial jazz funk album that I'm going to talk about today. Like I said, he got on Soul Train with this. He got bitten by that funk after he got to collaborate with Maurice, coming back into his sphere after he went and did his dream Earth, Wind, and Fire thing. Ramsey, when Maurice told Ramsey about his dream of having a band called Earth, Wind, and Fire that would be theatrical, that would have all this stuff, that would play all kind of music, and they'd be badass, but they'd be accessible. Ramsey, I think, told him, you need to go take a nap, take a bath, and go sit down and have a Coke and a smile. But Maurice came back, man, and so it got good to Ram too. So everybody, 1975, man, don't it feel good? Amazing, very accessible funk as classic. Every song is amazing.
Wow, great choice. I tell you what, when my radio show Uncut Funk got started 14 years ago, whenever it was, Fish Bite got regular play. That song Fish Bite got regular play because it was just, when I first started doing my show, it started out with it was P-Funk heavy because I kind of got turned on to doing a show because of P-Funk radio. Then I got turned on to Ricky Vincent, whose funk is never in a box. Once I got turned on to my guy Ricky, and we met and just became like instant, like brothers. Me and Ricky met, we became like brothers instantly. And he just told me a lot about doing what we do and his style. And then I just started searching out this different stuff that, hey, I remember I listened to this and this and this. And man, that Ramsey Lewis stuff, just like, got to get him in there. Got to get him in. That's why I'm always talking about you can't put your funk in a box. So I really like that. I really like that choice because that album had killers on it. That album had straight killers on it, man.
Yeah,
all killers.
Great choice. Great choice.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Spider-Man was the song that turned me on to Ramsey Lewis, period, because I heard it then, and I bought the single then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
interesting.
Yeah. Somehow it made it onto the radio, or I would have never heard it. So
what's the name of
it? Got on there because that album was the follow-up to Sun Goddess, and Ramsey decided to go full-fledged into the funk.
Wow.
That was the single, and Black Radio did play Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. I was like, why didn't they pick that up for the actual Spider-Man and start using it,
What's the name of this funk? Spider-Man. Yeah, great choice, man.
You can.
Absolutely.
Like I already just said it though, man. the Uncut Funk, when we would do Ramsey Lewis, man, we were just digging into that album deep. And I'm gonna just say this last thing, and I'm gonna be quiet. That version of Way of the World on there, and just the keyboard work that he did on that song, it's just like it's the same song, but it's like two different songs, man. Because I mean, he ripped that boy, man. He did.
And again, that's Charles Stepney, that's Ramsey, and the bass player T.S. Palmer. That song starts off with the bass, banano, boom,
boom, boom, yeah,
banano, boom, boom. I mean, that's not, the original That's the Way of the World was like so much more mellow, and it's beautiful. I love it. I still love Earth Winds more than Ramsey. But what I appreciated was that Ramsey didn't do no tired copy cover. His cover, I'm pretty sure Charles Stepney had the most to do with it, was completely different and its own vibe.
I'm jamming that tonight, man. I'm gonna get in my truck and at least go to the store or something. so I can jam in the truck, man. I'm gonna get in my truck and just go buy orange juice or something.
Jam fans after party.
Yes, sir.
All right, we got to keep rolling, guys. KD, you're up next.
This is number 4. All right, so I'm going to the city of Houston for my number 4 pick. The very prolific Laws family. My pick is Ronnie Laws, Every Generation. Okay. And it was hard to choose because there are so many great Ronnie Laws albums from that period. Friends and Strangers, Pressure Sensitive, Flame. I mean, you go through it. But this one, it just hit me even harder than the other ones. And I think because if you look at the cuts, and it's like starts off, kind of just in the pocket with Young Child, then Never Get Back to Houston, continues the funk. Then the title cut mellows things out. Then Tomorrow gives you that spacey vibe. And I mean, since they're all over Ronnie Laws albums in this period, Larry Dunn being a primary contributor exactly to what's going on there with Ronnie Laws. And of course, there's that early Earth, Wind and Fire connection when Ronnie was with the group. And clearly they maintained that friendship. OTBA, Ought to Be a Law, is straight up funk. Just magnificent. Love's Victory, really nice cut. Sister Eloise is on it, providing backup vocals. Patrice Rushen is also on that cut, just mellow as you want to be. Thoughts and Memories, still keeping in the mellow vibe. And then it ends with the song As One. And that's got such an infectious, just grabbed you by the nuts type of groove, and it just sticks. It just hits it. So, I mean, players, it's Hubert Laws is on this. Like I said, Larry Dunn, Patrice Rushen. You've got, what's it on this? Bobby Lyle is on it. I mean, just an excellent cast of characters, if you will. Great string section, 3 vocal cuts on it. Everything else is just jazz, synth-driven, sax, funk. Ronnie Laws, 1980.
Wow. Love Ronnie Laws. He's one of my alternate picks, which I'm not going to say which one yet in case I have to go to it still. But, man, love me some Ronnie Laws, and all those albums were great, KD, like you said.
Great pick, man. Every Generation is, man, that's one of those timeless tracks, man. We're talking about jazz and funk, but when I think about that album, Every Generation, I remember, I want to say I was 18, 19 years old when that track came out.
1980.
And that song told a story. And when you're 19 and you're listening to that, it was almost like teaching you what it was going to be like to be an adult. Because the stuff that he sang about in that song, you really hadn't lived it yet. But as you listen to that song, it was like, damn, this is life. That song stuck with me, man. So that's a great pick, man. If nothing else, for that song, if nothing else. Although
he wrote that song too. I was looking it up.
I was just going to say the rest of the album is just solid. I mean, from beginning to end, that's an album, and I got it. It says 1980, and just it grabbed me from the first song, and I still go back to it. It's one of those that I get into over and over and over again, and it still sounds very fresh to me. Even though some folks might say the synths are a little dated, it's like, no, man, just enjoy the ride because it's a wonderful ride. Pop it in, take off.
How badass is the Laws family?
I know, right?
Amazing.
When we're talking about this genre, all four of them, I think there's four. I know four, I believe, but
yeah,
they all brought us so much.
Hubert, yeah, and Ronnie.
Yeah. So very cool pick, Katie. Thank you for that one. Phil, what's up for you?
Oh, it's my turn. Man, I'm sitting up here going back and forth. I don't have, let's see. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the CD to this one. But show you a quick picture of it. And it was my guy.
Oh,
Hard.
Bernard Wright. 1981 track, man. I was an East Bay kid. Man, that's when Dave Grusin was really doing some things back then. Arista? Is he Arista?
Yeah, I think so.
GRP Records.
Arista, yep.
GRP Records. GRP. And they were doing some big things then across the board. And all of a sudden you had this, I want to say, how was Nord when he came out with that album? 16 or something, 17? He was a kid, man. He was younger than me. I remember when that album dropped. And if he wasn't younger than me, that was the story, that he was younger than me. And, you've got some, what do you call them? Man, you've got some funk tracks on there, Fireball Hustle, not funk, but some jazzy stuff, Music is the Key, Solar, which was a Miles Davis track. Mm-hmm. But man, you've got like two just banging funk tracks that have lasted a lifetime for me. What was it? Hobble Globble Trippin', yep. Which everybody sampled. And it's one of those tracks that when you dip back into the funk world of what was really funky then and what rose to the top in the funk tracks, that was one. And then you had Chillin' Out, mm-hmm. which was boom, 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 Chillin' Out. And it had the same vibe as the Tom Brown album, obviously,
from Jamaica.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same, a lot of the same cats doing the same stuff. And, for me, the reason I kind of chose that one was, and I think it went number 7 R&B. No, it went I had it somewhere. I had it somewhere. It rose up. It went number 7 Jazz. And it went number 23 Soul. And, it got almost top 100 pop. So it got a lot of play and it got really, really popular. It got really, really popular. And, when we start going back, you start talking about Kevin Oliver, Ronald Miller, Don Blackman, who's, Don Blackman did he has some really has some really funky chops, man. Don Blackman did a lot of stuff on his own. Charlie Drayton is on this album. Dennis Chambers is on this album. Luther Vandross, Patty Austin, with some background vocals. So, they put a nice little cast together for this young guy. And he was just a young piano player that came on the scene. And, his career didn't really just blow up like some other people may have in that era. But for that slice of pie, he made something, he made some music that stands the test of time. I guess I'll put it like that. For that slice of pie, the guy made some music that stands the test of time. Hobble Globble Tripping is it's just a track that's timeless. It's timeless.
Mhm.
So I as we were talking about this and stuff that moved us, there were definitely that I thought were jazz funk albums that may have been better than this. Subjectively speaking, there were definitely albums that I felt like probably had more accolades, maybe fit what we're talking about more. But for a couple of those tracks in general, and Hobble Globble Tripping in particular, it was hard for me to leave them off of a list of jazz funk albums on the strength of how enduring that is and how far up the charts it actually. Hobble Globble Tripping was a funk track, but the album actually went to number 7 on the jazz charts. And a lot of that was on the strength of a funk song that got him recognized. So that's kind of why I chose that. So that's that for me.
Great pick.
Definitely part of that whole Queens, New York scene, of all those cats you were naming, like Don Blackman and Tom Brown, and they were coming with so much great jazzy funk, late 70s, early 80s, and he was right in the thick of it.
Say, Phil, did that album also have bread sandwiches on it?
Yep.
Yeah, bread sandwiches was on that album, man. Yeah, bread sandwiches, chilling out, Hobble Globble Tripping, Master Rocker, which was a funky track, but just not in the same vein as some of those other ones. But Master Rocker was on there as well. So I mean, they came with it, they came with it, and they brought some funk on that boy.
The
for
young
sure.
star of GRP Records. He was the little young protege guy. After Dave Valentine, Angela Bofield, Dave Grusin, and a lot of the other stuff. And he was part of that Jamaica Queens group. Omar, Marcus, Lenny White, Don Blackman. He was the next generation, and they really, really tried to get him out there. It's too bad, he didn't do more. He should have done more.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Phil.
Yes, sir.
All right. So my pick for round 4 to wrap it up for this round is, a lot to get your arms around, because it's one of the all-time legends of the genre of jazz, but also one of the idiosyncratic, guys that went by the beat of his own drummer big time, but just another legend. As we're taping this, actually, we just recently lost, Sly, and, rest in peace to him. It'll be a few weeks before people see this. But Sly was an influence to this guy, especially on this record. And I'm talking about On the Corner, Miles Davis. So this, Sly, James Brown, Fela Kuti, a lot of other experimental type folks were influencing Miles. And he got some of the greatest musicians on the planet that had worked with him in the past and just hold them up, for days, and they just played what came to mind, trying to make it as funky as possible. And it's a grab bag for sure. I didn't actually come upon it until they put out this re-release, which is like the complete. It's really cool packaging.
It is. I like it.
It's got this book, and it's amazing. So, it's not the kind of funk that's really necessarily always on the one. It's really getting a lot of different rhythms and adding some funk vibe to it and going in some different directions depending on the cut. Very experimental in that way. Some of the guys that are on here, of course, Mtume and Michael Henderson playing bass throughout. I just actually found out, I didn't know because he wasn't on the original credits, but Lonnie Liston Smith was in there. A lot of these songs just have, whatever was coming to mind in terms of their titles. It's hard to pick out favorites, but a lot of them go on forever too, like 16 minutes. It's just recording, kind of like what War used to do for, their stuff, but they weren't edited down into singles. All right, we also had um, Benny Maupin, Chick Corea, Herbie, John McLaughlin playing some guitar. Jack DeJohnte.
That
How do you pronounce it? I think it's something that any funk fan should definitely explore if they haven't already. You may find it's your easiest way into Miles Davis if you're coming from the funk side to then get into some of the other, bebop and some of the more straight jazz stuff that he did. For me, I think even more than Bitches Brew, I gravitated toward this as a funk guy even more. And you're not going to lack for listening. It's 6 CDs in here. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, that original animated artwork was the work of Kirk McCoy. And he contributed to about 4, if not 5, Miles Davis album artworks at that particular time. And those were very, very important. Yeah. It's Dave Liebman on sax there. Mtume, Miles, and Michael Henderson.
Yeah, it's a beautiful booklet in here with all kinds of pictures and just really captures the moment in time.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I remember not when the album came out, but reading about the release of the album and kind of just it got trashed by the critics. I mean, Miles didn't care, but it was getting. And all of a sudden, the reassessments of this album as being, again, as you said, kind of a funk jazz funk masterpiece. And I love it. But by the same token, I acknowledge it's not an easy listen. If you just want some kind of casual, that On the Corner is not the album for you. But I love it. Great album. Excellent choice.
A lot of those tracks would work well, I think, as soundtrack music. It's got that kind of vibe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those were definitely head records, man. Those were put the headphones on and just, go with it, put the 8-track in and go on a long ride. I mean, they were oral masterpieces that were just movies for the mind. Sit there and listen to and do whatever your little activities are and have that on. And no disrespect. I mean, because the way those records were done. I mean, they turned the tape on, and then producer Tio Macero would come back afterwards and chop things up and to try to make some
cohesive
something that could be considered. Okay, here's one piece. Here's another piece. Here's another piece. Very, very, very interesting period for Miles, man. My favorite album from that period is Get Up With It. Which I think, the songs were a lot more, these are the songs, as opposed to the get everybody in the studio, jam, and then we'll figure it out later. Very, very important period for Miles, but definitely an acquired taste and an acquired listen. Everybody, like you said, those jazz critics, man, they were brutal on those records. The Jazz Police were not ready for Miles went from Bitches Brew through 75.
Mm-hmm. This I don't know if I said it, I think this was 72 when they recorded it. So yeah, go ahead, Kitty.
I was just going to say those the 2 live albums recorded in Japan. What is Hartha and Pangea? I mean, just massive. I mean, 40-minute long songs, but they're just jamming. That's all they're doing, and it's again challenging listens, but well worth it.
Absolutely.
I think what made the critics kind of pan stuff like that is the critics are looking for a polished product. What's the word? A product that will sell. I don't know if you want to call it commercial or not, but a product that you can present with a nice, neat little bow and present it. And I know that I'm sitting here talking with people right now. I know as the 4 of us, I know I'm one that can sit in my car or my truck or in my studio or whatever, and throw on some jams. And if it rambles, sometimes that's the best music. If it's just rambling and I'm grooving, if it's rambling and it's a groove, then who cares where the music goes? And a lot of times that was, man, probably more often than not, that was Miles' style. Like, look, I'm gonna just groove. If you get with it, you get with it. If you don't, okay, that's on you. But here's what we're gonna do, or here's what I'm gonna do. Y'all come along with me, and we'll just roll. And sometimes that's the genius of being a genius, you know. Just I'm going on this ride and let's go.
Period. The way he made those, the way those records were made, and of course the jazz critics were not going to be following him because it wasn't shang-a-langin', it wasn't straight ahead jazz, it didn't have this kind of a head and everybody blowing solos, then come back to the head. You know, Miles, when he went into those directions in music from Bitches Brew to the early mid 70s, he was trying to do, he wanted to get as far away from what people expected of him as possible. And so in that sense, again, I'll use the term mission accomplished, because I mean, and those records were also very, very important to the black underculture at the time. You know, the counterculture, black alternative, you know, Black Panthers. I mean, they were all about what Miles was doing at that particular time. It showed total freedom, leadership. I'm doing what I want to do. And the crazy, crazy thing is that for anything that we want to say about Clive Davis, Clive let Miles do. He was at Columbia Records at that. Mm-hmm. He didn't mess with Miles. Miles put out those records, and the jazz department and Clive basically, the way Miles's contract was, this is what it is. They rolled with it, and they really did try to their credit, to get people to listen to it, to get people to understand and value that Miles was going in some other direction. I've said it.
All right. Absolutely. We're ready to go on to the final round. Round 5. Let's bring it home with a bang. Scott, what do you say?
My final pick was something that I couldn't find my CD for, and I don't want to, I'm going to really go by the rules here. So I did. I'll try to come back to it at another time. Not even going to say what it was, but just to, I guess, piggyback on your pick, Scott, I'm just going to reach back here, right off my wall, and go to Miles again. And with the horn. It has so many albums, I am a jazz fusion. And I had, way more than 10, picks. This is a sentimental pick right now, and it just fit coming after you because we just lost the drummer that played on this record. And he was a monumental presence on this record, as well as the record. I mean, Jack DeJohnette is most of the drums on the corner, right? I think Al Foster, drummer, might have also had something to do with that record. I'm not sure. He worked with Miles during that period. This was the Miles Davis comeback album after he had been in semi-retirement for health reasons and all sorts of stuff. And again, when he came back, the critics, still had something to say. But at least this time, this is an album of 6 songs, and we're talking about jazz funk here. These are songs that are way more accessible. They're still badass. There's still incredible musicianship on this record. This Man with the Horn is the album we're talking about, and I'm going off the dome with this. So this is 1981. His band at this time, Marcus Miller on bass. Marcus, Marcus was still pretty young at this time, and Marcus came in and really helped to lock things down, like the bassist. Al Foster, God rest his soul, was able to. His style of playing had a rock swing to it, but it was funky. And of course, if Miles decided he wanted to go do something that still swung in a traditional sense, out that off. The guy named Bill Evans, no relation to the pianist Bill Evans, but another Bill Evans who played the horns, sax on this record with Miles's trumpet. And then the guitar chair was Mike Stern for one cut, and the other cuts, Barry Finnerty. Yeah, Barry Finnerty was the guitar player for most of this album. Mike Stern played on one tune, which actually became his nickname. Mike Stern. These are all these names are people that you need to remember. Remember their names. They are incredible contributors to the world of jazz, rock, fusion, contemporary jazz, whatever. Sammy Figueroa playing percussion on this record. I'm going to start off talking about the four primarily instrumental tracks on this. And starts with Backseat Betty, which was a song dedicated to his second or third wife, Betty Davis. And a very sexy, funky track, Backseat Betty. Fat Time, I'm sorry, was the first tune on the record, and that's the one that featured Mike Stern. These were fat, meaty grooves. They were actual compositions. There's no chopping stuff up in the studio. It was very funky, contemporary jazz stuff of the time period. Got this really African vibe tune that was just seriously thriving. Once again, Al Foster and Sammy Figueroa, drums and percussion, driving the hell out of that one. It's called Aida. And then you had Ursula, which was the most jazz-oriented track. If any jazz station was going to play something off of the album, that's what they had. Ursula was the most traditional jazz record. But the two songs that ended up getting all the airplay featured another set of young musicians that included Vince Wilburn, who was his nephew, Miles' nephew, and he to this day runs the Miles Davis estate. You have Randy Hall, who played guitar and was also a vocalist. We'll get to that. And Randy Hall. Robert Irving III was the keyboard player. Elton Cruz on Fender bass. Bill Evans remained for soprano sax. And I said Wilbur. So first of all, the radio song that was released for this, and it did get played on Black radio, was an instrumental called Shout. This was the song that let everybody know that Miles was back after this time out period. Very accessible, danceable, funky, commercial song using these young cats that, Miles always had his ear to what was going on in the street. And these young cats kind of had the pocket into a little bit of hip hop vibe and funky R&B stuff. So the instrumental Shout was huge. And then the title track of the album, The Man with the Horn, was a Quiet Storm kind of a track that featured Randy Hall crooning, talking about, Miles and what Miles' sound was, what it felt like, what it sounded like. It was a seductive track. He's the man with the horn. Blow on and on. This was a very calculated album to bring Miles back strong, to bring him back accessible, to bring him back in a contemporary Black cultural context. And it had something for just about everybody, man. I'm telling you. And Digital Underground, I used to add the album up before, sampled something for their song called Nuttin' This Funky. And I think it was either Fat Time. Yes, Fat Time. They sampled Fat Time for Nuttin' This Funky, which was on their second album. This is an EP. And shout out to Shock G, the leader of Digital Underground. That was a phenomenal use of Miles Davis music. And you know, Miles wouldn't have even allowed it unless it was badass. So, hey, Miles Davis, Man with the Horn from 1981, Scotty G freestyling, because I couldn't do the one that I wanted to do, but hopefully one day.
All right. Well, we got two
Great
sides
pick.
of Miles, 10 years apart almost. Right? That was 81, you said, right?
Yeah, about 9 years.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Way to freestyle, Scott, and way to bring it home.
Thank you.
KD, what are you going to wrap us up with?
So I'm going to wrap up with one that, frankly, I'm a little surprised wasn't already selected. And I kind of, I guess, kind of alluded to this artist with my first pick. You know, during, again, the early, really late 60s to mid 70s, Donald Byrd had his foot in jazz funk. I mean, he was there. And, you know, from basically Ethiopian Nights through Blackbyrds, Street Lady, Stepping into Tomorrow, and even Caricatures, all had, you know, that funky, you know, just, it was smooth, it was funky, Mizell Brothers, all of that. But the album for me that stood out is Places and Spaces.
Just played it yesterday.
And yeah, and I played it again today. It's just, you know, it's one of those, again, albums that I keep going back to. And what is so telling about this album is if you have the album or the CD of Donald Byrd's greatest hits, I think it's the best of Donald Byrd. There's like 4 cuts from this album on that CD. So this is, I think, epitomizes Donald Byrd's jazz funk chops. And I mean, just track by track, I mean, starting with, you know, Change Makes You Want to Hustle, Party Song right there, Wind Parade, Smooth, Falling Like Dominoes, funky, smooth, hip hop sample, great song. Title cut, Places and Spaces. Love that song. That is like one of my favorite cuts. You and the Music, Chill, Night Whistler, Chill. Just My Imagination ends it up, which frankly, it seems a little bit out of place, but even that works. I mean, the whole album is just like Donald Byrd at his best, you know, in terms of this period jazz funk. Mizell Brothers production, top notch on this one. Personnel, Donald Byrd, of course, Raymond Brown. You got George Bohannon. You've got, Craig McMullen and John Rowan on guitars. Larry Mizell, of course. Skip Scarborough's on it. Phonce Mizell, Chuck Rainey, Harvey Mason. I mean, just on and on. All-star cast of characters. It is a classic. It is must-have for any jazz funk aficionado. Get this album. It is, you know, if you don't have it, love it. It's one of those I got to
credit. Got to give the sister credit, the vocalist on Falling Like Dominoes and something else. When was it Faye something?
Let me find it.
Maybe I'm thinking about something. Think Twice. Yeah, she was on Think Twice. That was a Step Into Tomorrow album.
Let's see, you got.
But they're
It's
on that record.
Mizell, and you got Kay.
You got Kay Haith on that album.
There you go. Thank you. I knew there was a sister on it.
Kay Haith is on that album.
Yep.
Yeah. Great record. Very, very, very wonderful record. I had this one as an alternate. I was gonna go with this, but when Scott went with Miles, I wanted to counter the Miles thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Larry and Phonce Mizell with Donald Byrd for that 5-album string was just
They killed it.
a revolution. A revolution.
You know, it's weird how you talk about people going on a run, because you had an album. He picked Places and Spaces, and I actually had Caricatures listed as one. So it's almost like you couldn't miss him with what you were doing, because Donald Byrd for that period of time was was like right there. And I noticed how we've repeated some artists because they were just like that cutting edge of what we're talking about tonight.
Well, I mean, and we hit it with the other artists too. I mean, you talked about, George Duke and the run that he went on, Herbie Hancock, his run, Donald Byrd, his run. It just goes on. They once they hit that particular groove, they stuck with it and knocked it out. Roy Ayers. I mean, those runs of albums in the early to mid to late 70s, Ronnie Laws. I mean, same story. Just classic album after classic album. And it was hard to narrow it down to 5.
Yeah, like I said, I just chose to de-emphasize. I knew that all those artists were going to pop up in here somewhere, and that's why I kind of went a little left. But yeah, those guys are jazz funk fusion.
With that being said, I love what you did.
I had that one too. It's like,
I think half our picks are from 75 also.
Yeah, man.
Okay, well, since I haven't come yet, I'm not gonna pull that one out. I'll pull a different one out.
but Donald Byrd is same year as City Life, I think.
It too, so.
Wow.
I was just saying, Carl, that this Donald Byrd is the same year as City Life as well. So with his band, his proteges. All right. Very nice pick. Way to make the tough choice, Carl.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, Phil, what do you got?
Well, and sticking with the conversation that we just had, I kind of hated to repeat some artists, and I have a few choices that I could go with this, like not a repeat. I'll just mention one right quick, was that 29 Best of Friends album, but I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to circle back and we're going to go with Scott's favorite band one more time. Crusaders.
That was Carl. Carl brought up favorite.
Okay. So when we started talking about this topic, this was maybe one of the first albums that came to mind. I listened to a lot of Crusaders. I was down with some Crusaders as a young guy, but I think this Free as the Wind album was probably the first one, and it's because you go through different stages in life. And I think I had the album and the 8-track. I had a car, and I was just constantly bumping this wherever I went. And from that first album, from that first song, Free as the Wind, it starts out with a little drum, and then everything just starts kind of falling in place, and then the strings come in, and then boom, ba doo boom, boom, ba doom, 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 and then Wilton Felder comes in with the horns, da, 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 da. And that's another one of those songs where it's like, I think Scott G said it earlier, they soar with it, they come back, da, 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 and then they bring you back to,
yes, sir.
and then a little guitar, so from the first track, they grab it. Then you start talking about players in a classic lineup: Stix Hooper, Joe Sample, Wilton Felder, Larry Carlton, Pop Popswell. And then you had guest Ralph McDonald's, Roller Batista, Paulina DaCosta. I mean, you had the players there.
Horsemen's.
Yeah, you had the players there. Dean Parks, Arthur Adams. And the thing was each song, I felt the love. I'm not gonna sing all the songs, but I felt the love, Nightcrawler, Feel It, Sweet. Every song, like the beginning of it, and then they closed it out. And I'll go to the last one. It Happens Every Day, and they just chill you out with that one. Do 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 do. Some Joe Sample being Joe Sample. And what was cool about it, you got a Joe Sample track that he wrote. You got I Felt the Love, Stix Hooper track that he wrote. The Way We Was, Pop's Popwell track, Nightcrawler, a Larry Carlton track, Then you got Feel It, Feel the Music, Feel the Beat of My Heritage. And you got all of them with writer credits on that. And then you go back to Joe Sample and Wilton Felder again, which Wilton Felder is a tour de force in the music world that people don't even realize, you know. And,
Absolutely.
And you know, people, a lot of people, they don't even realize how influential and how much stuff Wilton Felder has really accomplished in the world of music outside of Crusaders, you know.
Right.
But I'm not going to get into that. But if you're listening to this or you see this and you're like, what's he talking about? Look him up. Look him up. I'll just say that. Look him up and you'll see. Man, just a great album. Another Crusaders album. I feel like they were a little more polished sound from the deep grooves that they had from like albums like Chain Reaction, Southern Nights, and stuff like that. You know, the sound had become a little more polished on this particular album to me. But it's still just like, it's jazzy, it's funky. Everything is like, you know, everything is like, it's a head mover. You know, it's a head mover. I think it was some of Styx Hooper's greatest work on this album, just the way he put a rhythm and a drum track to each one of these, the way he laid the drums down, almost like, and the way they ride the rhythm of his drums, and it all comes together, was just exceptional. Crusaders, Free as a Wind, number 5 for me, man.
Nice.
Now that I watch it, pick it up, man.
That's an awesome one. I think their songwriting front to back on that one was so solid and strong. And you mentioned Sample. I think he really shined on that album with his piano work, especially. Great record. I love that one.
Yeah.
I was kind of stuck between that and Images, but I think this one really carries it off, you know?
Yeah, the Crusaders were great, and I have to correct myself. I said something earlier about those Southern Nights being Larry's last album. It was Free as the Wind. Free as the Wind was Larry's last. And also, it happens every day. So beautiful on that record. But you know who also did a beautiful cover of that was Lee Ritenour.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On the Lee Ritenour Rio album. Man, yeah, It Happens Every Day is a classic. Not funk at all, but that is a gorgeous composition.
Yeah, I mean, they closed it out with that. And, you know, like we were talking, I guess the jazz funk fusion. So, like I said, we kind of started that boy off with, you know, I mean, and it is a funk, like Free as the Wind, River Rat is, you know, that's like some damn Louisiana backwoods in the swamp ass funk, you know, that really grabs you right there. And you know, Sweet and Sour as well. But I mean, they closed it out with, I mean, It Happens Every Day, which, like we said previously, man, that's man, Joe Sample at his finest, man. And Joe Sample ripped it up even more on that next album, Images, man. I think they got a little more into Joe Sample's sound when they did Images, like prior to the Street Life album. But yeah, man, that's.
We talked about production and arrangements. I think this was the first album that they had horns and strings on. The one that blew up for them with all that was Street Life a few albums later. But
Yeah.
Free as the Wind is if I'm not mistaken, the first album where they went away from just the Crusaders and their, you know, extra added people and actually went ahead and
which gave it a less, to me, that's what made it sound less gritty. And I guess we talked about it like a more cleaner production. Because even when you start off with Free as the Wind, the title track, you know, you and then Styx is doing his thing, and then all of a sudden you just got the strings come in. Yeah. And from that track, the album just flowed. So
yeah.
You know,
if an album ever flowed, that album flows really well. Yeah.
For sure. Right.
All right. Good job, Phil. Way to bring it home, man.
Right on.
Well, I guess we have one more. I'm going with somebody that has been mentioned a few times, but no one's picked one of his albums. And I don't have the cover here, so I'm going to hope that Karl or somebody else can hold it up. But I got to go with Roy Ayers and Mystic Voyage.
Love it.
That album. I have a picture of Roy Ayers, but I don't have that one here. So while you go for that one, I'll just talk about how this, to me, is his definitive funk album. It just cooks from beginning to end. Opening with Brother Green, the Disco King. I mean, how funky can you get? You know, it's got vocals, so funky. Uh, Edwin Birdsong again was a co-writer on that one. Then it goes into the title track, which is an instrumental, and it's got just a balance of just, you know, funk and soul, and Roy just killing it on vibes on the title track. Goes into a wee bit, which is like, again, super funky, not that long, got some vocals in there. Take All the Time You Need, which is the Ashford and Simpson track. It's the one like slow song ballad on there, but it's really nicely done with a hot lead vocal, female vocalist, whose name I'll have to get back to you on that. Evolution, how funky is that? Uh, Again, just killing it. And then the two-part Life is Just a Moment, which again, serious funk. And then after all of that funk, we got Funky Motion, which actually has in the title. So, and then the one that like got me from the get-go that I first heard off this, and I just still is probably my favorite, is Spirit of Doo-Doo. I mean, that is just nasty, lives up to the title. I mean, thank you, Scott. Another Birdsong track, but Spirit of Doo-Doo with a little synth thing, and just awesome. And ends up with the Black Five. So 10 tracks, almost probably 80% of them are funk. And the rest is soulful jazz. And, you know, Roy's playing on there to me is just like sublime with those runs he does on those vibes. Incredible. Byron Lee Miller on bass. And Edward Birdsong is not only writing, but he's also doing some of the vocals. This record actually got to number 13 on the R&B chart, a jazz record, came to number 13 on the R&B chart is no joke, and broke the Hot 100 on the albums. So this came in between Change Up the Groove and A Tear to Smile, 1975 Mystic Voyage. And to me, it's the definitive killer front to back funkathon for Roy Ayers, who we lost, I think, in 2024, right? So rest in peace.
I just lost him this year.
It was this year.
No, man, that was like what, 3 months ago, maybe?
Yeah.
3 months ago at tops, probably.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago.
This year? Okay. Time flies for me. I forget.
It does, but it really does. But it was actually this year.
We lost so many this year that
I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. But once again, you picked an album, once again, Scott, that we talk about artists that went on these great runs in this. And in talking about it, I'm not sure if we're talking about artists that went on a great run, or it was just a great time for music in that period. You know, is it a chicken or is it the egg? You know, which one came first? Because you got a lot of stuff happening right around that same time period that makes you say,
A lot of great players on that record. Ubiquity was such a turnstile for cats. And another name that you mentioned, Scott, I just wanted to reiterate it again because the brother's doing his thing, is Byron Miller. He's Byron Lee Miller on that Roy Ayers. But he's going on the road this year, you know, with this album he's got coming out. And he's going to be having tributes to both George Duke and Roy Ayers in his show. So the album is Psycho Bass 4. And
say it again. I got to write it down. Man, you full of notes tonight, man. Yeah. What's the name of that album?
Psycho Bass 4. Motor City Love. Because I did the liner notes for all of it. That's my friend. Byron's my dude. So it's been Psycho Bass 1, 2, 3. They had different titles, subtitles. This one coming out in July on his birthday, which I'm off the dome. I think it's July 22nd. Psycho Bass 4, Motor City Love, because he's from Detroit.
Okay.
I'm so glad he's one of the only cats that have been keeping that alive, that were doing it back in the day and are still bringing the serious funk jazz, which is what we're about on this particular episode. Byron Miller is a guy who's still bringing it.
Still bringing it. And, he was behind the scenes for so long, and he finally just, in the last 10 years, really did a push to be a solo artist. He did some solo CDs before, but they were okay. But I swear to you, this string of psycho bass albums, 1, 2, 3, and 4 coming out, is him really saying, okay, it's my time. So I definitely encourage everybody watching and listening to pay attention to Byron Miller and get those records, because they're very accessible, but then he'll throw that funk on you. He's very conscientious of getting on the radio and getting airplay, and he's been doing very well with that. But you dig into the CD, and all of a sudden, he's going to hit you.
Well, this is the time we got through our 20. Real quick, any alternate picks or anything you guys want to throw out there and just say this almost made the cut?
Man, you guys took some of my stuff from me already. A lot of them were some of the same stuff we did. Nobody mentioned this guy. And I had a couple of picks from him. Nobody mentioned Stanley Clarke.
Right.
I had School Days. Yeah.
I had Rocks Pebbles and I had School Days as an alternate. I just didn't get around to School Days. And also, I really liked, even though it was somewhat of a filler, just the fact that Hot Fun Live was on there on I Want to Play For You. Yeah, just because Hot Fun was on there live, and it's just a killer version of that, I came really close to putting that on my list. But yeah,
I had some of the same problems with Stanley, because they're the funky stuff, and then boom, he on School Days, Desert Song, which is a totally acoustic, beautiful piece of music.
Right.
A Quiet Afternoon, even though it's a ballad, it was kind of funky, but I don't know. I love Stanley, and I swear I thought one of y'all were going to pick Stanley. I knew somebody was going to do Jeff Lorber. Look, Scott, you blew it. I said Lorber. Somebody's going to say Lorber.
What was my other one? Jeff Lorber. I had Galaxian. I had Jeff Lorber Galaxian was on my list. I didn't pull the trigger on it, man. I didn't pull the trigger. Jeff Lorber Galaxian was on the list.
Yeah, it would have had to have been either the early stuff on Inner City or the first 3 Jeff Lorber fusion albums. I wouldn't have gone anywhere past that. Yeah.
Right.
That was probably the last one, the one that Scott held up. That would qualify.
You mentioned one that I actually had in my hand and I put it back, which was the Lenny White 29 album. The first one, Friends. Because that was I was there. I played that one to death too. So great album.
There's some funk classics on it, man. I actually listened to that album right before we came on and started doing the podcast. I was listening to that album.
I'll just throw these up because I was considering them also. This is a compilation with some early Tom Scotts, and of course Billy Cobham.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
But at least Phil got Billy in there on his pick. So, yeah, right on. Well, hey, any final thoughts for us to wrap this up? I'll just go around the horn real quick. If you want to plug something, feel free. I'll start with Phil.
Hey, Uncut Funk with Phil Colley, P-Funk Radio, Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. Check us out, man. Thanks again. I mean, I appreciate you, Scott, and KD. A pleasure as always. Love what you do, man. Anytime, man. I'm welcome. Anytime. I'll be glad to be on and do what we do, man. Had a blast.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Scott?
ascottgalloway.net. That's what I got. Go there. You'll learn a lot about me and a lot about the music that I've written about. That is the spot. And yeah, I enjoy these a lot. Great chopping it up with everybody, and very nice to meet you for the first time, Karl.
Thank you so much. Scott, thank you for allowing me to be part of this. Scott, pleasure to meet you. Been following you for quite some time. Your liner notes are just fabulous. So I will be checking you out on your website, plugging FJS with KD on pfunkradio.com every Thursday, 8 to 11, sometimes a little longer. But we make it go, and we hit funky, jazzy, and smooth during the set. And one plug, because we didn't really talk about any contemporary artists, and I want to plug the group Butcher Brown out of Richmond, Virginia, which is where I live. They are bubbling under the scene. They are a hot jazz funk group. Check them out.
All right. Well, thank you and kudos to the chefs who came up with their picks for everybody. And with that, I hope everyone enjoyed this edition of Jam Fans Forum. Check out the description of this video for links to the albums we talked about. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, as well as subscribe to the channel. Drop your own personal choices for the 5 greatest jazz funk albums of all time into the comments. We want to know what your picks are. Tell us what other categories you'd like to see covered on Jam Fans Forum. And the next time around, we'll reveal the picks for the top 5 funk ballads of all time. For now, as always, this is Scott Dr. Jake Skullfine saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Hey, peace, guys, man. I'll check y'all out next time.
Right on.
Thank you all. Good seeing you.
All right.
All right.